It's worth bearing in mind that there are a multitude of religious responses to the problem of evil. And again, skepticism requires that we take them very seriously and only conclude that the problem of evil is really a problem once we fully understand them. So, for instance, one justification for the existence of moral evil, which is to be distinguished from so-called natural evil, like earthquakes and tsunamis, which are sometimes perhaps uncharitably called acts of God. In the case of moral evil, such as murders and thefts and rapes and these kinds of things, the Christian likes to respond by saying that the reason these things exist is because of human free will. God so values human free will that he gives us a genuine ability to choose between evil and good. And the reason for this is because the purpose of human life is to enter into a relationship, a loving relationship with God. And love, by definition, must be freely given. You cannot extract love from somebody without their consent. Otherwise, it's not love, as anybody who's seen Bruce Almighty will be familiar with. If that's the case, then human beings need the ability to genuinely choose to do the right thing. They need to be able to choose it freely. But to choose something freely requires the ability to do the opposite. So if God needs us to be able to freely choose to do the good, it requires that he at least gives us the option of doing bad. And therefore, some human beings choose the bad, and that's why evil exists. Okay, sounds fairly clever. There are all kinds of questions that we need to raise with theodicies like these, and that's what these are called. Attempts to reconcile the existence of evil with the existence of a loving God are called theodicies. And my favorite question to ask in response to the free will theodicy is to ask whether there'll be free will in heaven. Heaven is characterized by Christians as a place of communion with God, in which there is kind of eternal bliss, everybody's living happily. And it's a little vague about what it will exactly entail, but we certainly know that there's no evil there. We certainly know that nobody's murdering, nobody's raping, nobody's stealing in heaven. The question is there free will in heaven? Because if there's not, then we've been turned into these kind of non-agents, these robotic creatures who have to serve God, which is the whole thing the theist was trying to avoid in the first place by saying that God so valued free will. So there probably is free will in heaven. And I think most of us would agree that if we're not free in heaven, we couldn't really realistically call it heaven. But that means we have a place in which there is free will and yet no moral evil. Okay, why can this not obtain on planet Earth? Now, as I say, there may be some practical reason that God made for this. But the claim that the Christian may have originally made, which is that free will is just logically incompatible with the non-existence of evil. The reason evil exists is because free will requires it. That's a logical claim. Right? They're saying that the reason that moral evil exists in the world is because of free will, implying that free will needs the ability for people to commit evil. But if we can give at least one example, even if it is a superstitious example of heaven, where there's a logical compatibility between the existence of free will and yet there being no evil, that argument is undercut. And that's a question that, again, needs to be addressed by the religious.